The Lord be with you. I'm Deacon Keith Fournier, and our first reading is from the book of the prophet Jeremiah. That same year, at the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 5th month of the year, the prophet Hananiah, son of Azzur, a Gibeonite, spoke as follows to Jeremiah in the Temple of Yahweh, in the presence of the priest and of all the people. Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. In exactly 2 years' time, I shall bring back all the vessels of the Temple of Yahweh, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took away from here and carried off to Babylon. And I shall also bring back Jeconiah, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, and all the exiles of Judah who have gone to Babylon. Yahweh declares, for I shall break the yoke of the king of Babylon. The prophet Jeremiah then replied to the prophet Hananiah in front of the priest and all the people present in the temple of Yahweh. So be it, the prophet Jeremiah said. May Yahweh do so. May he fulfill the words that you have prophesied and bring all the vessels of the temple of Yahweh and all the exiles back to this place from Babylon. Listen carefully, however, to this word that I am now going to say for you and all the people to hear. From remote times, the prophets who preceded you and me prophesied war, disaster, and plague for many countries and for great kingdoms. The prophet who prophesies peace can be recognized as one truly sent by Yahweh only when his word comes true. The prophet Hananiah then snatched the yoke off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah and broke it. In front of all the people, Hananiah then said, Yahweh says this, this is how in exactly 2 years' time I shall break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and take it off the necks of all the nations. At this, the prophet Jeremiah went away. After the prophet Hananiah had broken the yoke he had snatched off the prophet Jeremiah's neck, the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah. Go to Hananiah and tell him this. Yahweh says this, you have broken the wooden yokes only to make iron yokes to replace them. For Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, an iron yoke is what I now lay on the necks of all these nations to enslave them to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. They will be enslaved to him. I've even given him the wild animals. The prophet Jeremiah said to the prophet Hananiah, listen carefully, Hananiah. Yahweh has not sent you. And thanks to you, this people is now relying on what is false. And so Yahweh says this, I'm going to send you off the face of the earth. You will die this year since you've preached rebellion against Yahweh. The prophet Hananiah died the same year in the 7th month. And our response is from Psalm 119. Keep me far from the way of deceit. Grant me the grace of your law. Do not deprive me of that faithful word, since my hope lies in your judgments. Let those who fear you rally to me, those who understand your instructions. My heart shall be faultless towards your will. Then I shall not be ashamed. The wicked may hope to destroy me, but all my thought is of your instructions. I do not turn aside from your judgments, because you yourself have instructed me. A reading from the Holy Gospel, according to St. Matthew. And at once he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side, while he sent the crowds away. After sending the crowds away, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, while the boat, by now some furlongs from land, was hard pressed by rough waves, for there was a headwind. In the 4th watch of the night, he came towards them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. It is a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. But at once Jesus called out to them, saying, Courage, it is me. Don't be afraid. It was Peter who answered, Lord, he said, if it is you, tell me to come to you across the water. And Jesus said, Come. Then Peter got out of the boat and started walking towards Jesus across the water. But then noticing the wind, he took fright and began to sink. "Lord," he cried, "save me." Jesus put out his hand at once and held him. "You have so little faith," he said. "Why did you doubt?" And as they got into the boat, the wind dropped. The men in the boat bowed down before him and said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Having made the crossing, they came to land at Gennesaret. When the local people recognized him, they spread the news through the whole neighborhood and took all that were sick to him, begging him just to let them touch the fringe of his cloak. And all those who touched it were saved. The Gospel of the Lord.